Well. Facebook, family, and friends. It has been almost 5 to 6 months since I've did the last YouTube presentation based on this Rapture sequel. Hopefully, this will be the last part, dealing with Rapture Part 4, depending on how much I can get in. I am a busy person trying to do spiritual and physical lifestyle outside of spiritual, so it's been a little tough for me, but through Ruach HaKodesh, as the world calls him, the Holy Spirit, he has given me the strength to continue. But with that being said, let us go on and get continued with this Rapture Part 4, and hoping again that we can get it all in on this last segment. Alright, so Rapture Part 3 broke down a lot of scriptures dealing with the way we're not gonna see a rapture. It was dealing with scriptures that I was showing you how he was coming back and how things was gonna be determined, dealing with the Battle of Armageddon, dealing with his wrath, etc. Again, you do have to go look at all my rapture segments to understand what I'm speaking on, all the way up to Rapture Part 3, because I believe in trying to put my studies in chronological order. Now, with that being said, for those who haven't been paying attention, I told you all that there is no rapture. Again, go back to my sequels to understand why I'm saying that. If there's going to be a rapture, it's not going to be the rapture that we have been taught through religion. So, from research, biblical vessels that I've also seen take a study to this, I tried my best to collaborate a lot of verses to help correlate what I'm about to say. Help try to combine all this together to help y'all understand why there is no rapture. If it was, we would not be here as of today. And if there is going to be a rapture, it's going to be a particular way he does it versus the way we've been taught. Now, with that being said, let's get ready to look at Revelations right here. Revelations chapter 12, verses 13 through 16. And it's also going to correlate with my book of Enoch I have here. It's also going to correlate with Enoch, this book here. Okay? It's going to correlate with what I need to show you out of this book. So, let's go on and get started. So, Revelations chapter 12, verses 13 through 16 says this. What does it say? Well, we'll show you in just a minute. Let me get my screen together. This is what it says. It says, now, when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might do what? Fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half from the presence of the serpent. Of course, you got to understand times and times and a half. Biblically, biblically, that's just pretty much saying about 2.5, I think 2.5, 3.5 years, something like that. But you have to study that to understand what that means when it says times and a half, times and a half a time. Because even Daniel spoke on that literature there, time and times and a half a time. That's again speaking on biblical language of about 3 to 3.5 years or something like that. But anyway, let's continue. Verse 15. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth, and we'll talk about that soon. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon spewed out of his mouth. Now, with that being said, let's go out of this to understand what it's talking about when it says, now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the presence of the serpent. You got to understand, again, Revelation is speaking prophecy. Revelations is speaking end times. Revelations is speaking apocalypse events. Okay, so again, future tense, end time. Excuse me, y'all. End time events, future events. So in order to understand what Revelation is talking about right here, okay, in order to understand that, there are some words that has to be broken down, okay, or some scriptures, may I say. I want y'all to bear with me as I get ready to take y'all to some verses so y'all can understand what this means all by itself. Even what verse 15 means when it says, so the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. All of this is symbolic terms of what Yahshua is talking about, okay? So, with that being said, let's go to, let me take y'all to Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20. Let me take y'all there, all right? Because y'all got to understand what it means by the flood. You got to understand what it means spewing out the mouth. All of that. You have to kind of understand that as well. And then we'll continue on. So Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20. Now keep in mind, these verses that I'm talking about is going to correlate with Revelation chapter 12, verses 13 through 16, and it's also correlating with Revelation chapter 6, which I would try to remember to show y'all once I'm done here with Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20. Alright? So when you look at this here, right? When you look at Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20, you see where I have it highlighted. I have it highlighted saying, the refuge from the coming judgment, or take refuge from the coming judgment. Verse 20 says, come, my people, enter your chambers, and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little moment, until what? Until the indignation is past. Come, my people, enter your chambers, and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation is past. Okay? What indignation? The trials, the tribulations, the persecution of the saints. Satan or the Antichrist coming in, performing his abomination of desolation. Okay? All of that. Okay? Now, I also want to show you Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 5 through 8. Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 5 through 8. Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 5 through 8. Says this. For thus says the Lord of Yahweh, We have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask now and see whether a man is ever in labor with a child. So why do I see every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in labor? And all faces turned pale. Verse 7. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. And it is, literally emphasizing what this is, it is the time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be saved out of it. How? Because if you look, I got it underlined. The wilderness. During the abomination of desolation. Okay? Also, it's a dual prophecy because it was also talking about Daniel's 70-week prophecy when the Gentiles came and trampled Israel. I think that was in 70 AD. So all this is dual. It's talking about the past of 70 AD, which wasn't happening yet until the New Testament time. But it's also talking about our end age that's coming about us when the abomination of desolation hit. All right, let me go to verse 8. Verse 8 says this. For it shall come to pass in that day, says Yahweh of hosts, that I will break his yoke from your neck, and I will burst your bonds. Foreigners shall no more enslave them. This is when he's talking about the gathering of his people. Okay? This is when he's talking about when the abomination of desolation take place. And this is when he's talking about when he comes to gather his elect. Okay? We are going to suffer this Jacob's trouble for a little while. Okay? But if you notice, it also said during Jacob's time of trouble, he shall be saved out of it. How is Jacob, his people, going to be saved out of it? Now, mind you, it said Jacob's trouble. Jacob's trouble. His elect are the ones that he's calling from the four corners of the earth. He said that. Okay? He literally said his elect is the ones that he's pulling and calling and blowing the trumpet for from the four corners of the earth. Okay? Let me see if I can go to Matthew chapter 24. Let's see here. I'm going to try to go to Matthew chapter 24. 21. Matthew chapter 24 and 21. Now, y'all know I've spoken on this already. I've already spoken on Matthew. I think I spoke on this, if not in this study, another one. But when you look here, right? Again, this is Matthew. This is Matthew chapter 24. And this is the part that I'm trying to show you. The string is in my way. The part that I'm trying to show you is dealing with the tribulation, as I've always did before. But I want y'all to pay attention to Matthew chapter 24. Let's start at verse 15 and work ourselves down some, right? Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which is when Antichrist come and he takes over and now he's ready for everybody to worship him. And I'll speak on it in another study. But he's ready for everybody to worship him. And for those that don't want to worship him, he's going to persecute them. Right? That's why it's called the abomination of desolation. Because now he wants to sit himself in Yahshua's temple and play to be God per se. Alright? So, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of in Daniel, the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand, standing in the holy place. Okay, standing in the holy place, talking about that temple in Jerusalem. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Okay, again, this is a dual. This is a dual prophecy, because it was even talking about 70 AD when them Romans and them Gentiles came and took over the temple and the land and started trampling his people and destroying them. So this is past tense, but it's also future tense for us. And you will know what I mean as we continue to read. Okay? It says, let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in this field not go back to get his clothes. Okay? Verse 19. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter on the Sabbath. Verse 21, now it's talking about dual. Now we're going to the time for us. Okay, now it's jumping to the time for us in verse 21. Alright. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, verse 22, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Elect means chosen ones. For the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So with that said, going back to Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20. Who was he talking to? When he said, take refuge from the coming judgment. He was talking about his elect. He was talking about his chosen people. He was telling those to go and enter into the chambers and shut their doors behind them and hide themselves for a little while until the indignation is past. He was talking about them, his elect. That's who he's talking about in this particular verse. Okay. Now, when you look back at Revelation chapter 12, verses 13 through 16. This dragon is Satan or Antichrist. Okay. When he was persecuted, when he was cast to the earth, that's pretty much talking about from spiritual understanding. That's basically talking about when he was booted out of heaven. Now keep in mind, he still has permission to go to heaven. He has permission and access to go into the heavenly realm up until this day. Until that time gets here and he's literally booted out and he has no more access to it. And the reason he has access to continue to go into heaven is because he has to get permission from the Most High to taunt at the Most High's people. And if you look at Job, Job is telling you right there itself how Satan has had to go into the heavenly realm amongst the angelic hosts and speak to the Most High about tempting Job. He does that now even to this day. But it's going to come a time when war is going to break out, and I think that's spoken of a little bit more up in Revelations chapter 12. I think that's somewhere through 9 and 10, 11, 12, something like that, verses 9 through 12, where he's going to be going through war and he's going to be completely booted out. And now that he see that his time is up, Satan's gonna allow the Antichrist to take over through that abomination of desolation. So with that being said, when the dragon has been cast out into the earth, he's gonna be ready to persecute the woman who gave birth to the male child. Well, who is the woman that gave birth to the male child? We already know in literal sense that Sarah who gave birth to Yahshua, as the world calls Jesus. But when you're speaking in biblical terms, it is talking about the woman who gave birth to the male child. Spiritual terms, woman means church. So this is the Israelites, the Israelite church. Okay, because that's where Yahshua came from. He came from the Hebrew nation. Okay. He's going after these people. He's ready to get rid of Yahshua's elect. Now keep in mind, some of Yahshua's elect are still stiff-necked. So when he says elect, he's talking about the ones that he have called and the ones that listened and took heed to his word and has been following his truth, not religion, but has been following his truth since then. Those are his elect. His elect are the ones that has been following his truth, has left the Babylonian religious system and came into his truth. That's also the part, and I know I'm speaking a little further out, but that's also the part dealing with some of the Gentiles that are not true Hebrew bloodline people. Some of the Gentiles that have been grafted in because they have accepted his truth and are no longer in religious deception. So now that he has given birth to this male child, again, this is dual prophecy. It's talking about the past, but it's also talking about the future for us. This woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle that she might fly into the wilderness to her place. What did I just say right here? Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20. And shut your doors behind you, hide yourself as it were for a little moment, until the indignation is past. This is correlating with this right here as well. It's correlating with that as well. Okay. Jeremiah chapter 30, verses 5 through 8. Same thing when it's talking about Jacob's trouble and the things that his people are going to have to go through. But what did it also say? It also said, but he shall be saved out of it. Okay, it explains bits and pieces of Jacob's trouble because I just read it. I just read it not too long ago. But at the end, he shall be saved out of it. How? Because they're going to go into that wilderness. They're going to go into this wilderness right here. They're going to close their chamber and go into that wilderness until the indignation is past. Okay. Again, is this talking about a rapture? Nope, this is not talking about no rapture. It's not talking about no rapture at all. Now, let's understand when you get ready to go to this next verse, right? Let's get ready to understand what it's talking about when it says, so the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. Alright, what is it meaning when it says that? Again, if we're talking about Antichrist, and I showed y'all in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15 on down. If we're talking about Antichrist and the abomination of desolation, and this is future, which means it hasn't taken place yet, but it's right around the corner. It's also talking about the time during when the Gentiles or the Romans came and they trampled down the Israelite people. That's the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD. For those who don't know, you have to research on your own and look that up. You can Google it, but it's in the Bible anyway. When Yahshua was speaking about how they were going to come and they was going to trample it. And that's when he was crying. If anybody know the Bible, that's when he was crying when he was riding on the donkey. And he said, woe unto these, paraphrasing, woe unto these people, because if they only knew what was coming ahead of them. Because he already knew that hollering and the blessings and the whooping and hollering. Let's thank Yahshua, Yahushua HaMashiach for being here. He's riding on a donkey just as humble. Because he already knew these people hard and he knew what was coming up. His own people was going to persecute him. And then he was crying. He was crying because he knew what was going to happen. That after all his persecution, after all his time came near, and he died off, if I'm not mistaken, Yahshua Holy Spirit, Romans was going to come out and trample. They was going to trample the temple. Okay, they was going to trample the temple in 70 AD. Okay. So all of this is still correlating with past, which it was the New Testament, our New Testament past. But it's also correlating with what's going to come towards us in this modern day and age. Okay. So again, the dragon and Satan, who and then impersonates himself as Antichrist, got cast off to the earth because he had war. And you got to look at Revelation chapter 12 to read that yourself. You got to look at the verses before 13. Had war with the angelic host. He got booted out. He got mad because he know his time is up. Now he's ready to go persecute the woman, which is the Hebrew Israelites, or the chosen people, and also the ones that have been grafted in that are not Hebrew lineage. He's going to go and persecute the woman, okay? He's going to persecute the woman who gave birth to the male child. Who gave birth to the male child? Mary did, literally. But who are the who are his bloodlines? The Hebrew people, the Israelites. So that's who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle that she might fly into the wilderness to her place. And I explained to y'all the wilderness is basically, and I haven't explained everything, but I showed y'all certain scriptures on what it means about flying off into the wilderness, or pretty much being in safe habitation somewhere. I showed you that in Isaiah chapter 26 verse 20. I showed you in Jeremiah chapter 30 verses 5 through 7, where it's saying that they're going to go through some persecution, but they're going to be saved at the end. We're almost there. Just bear with me. And I also want to show you, I think I also showed you in Matthew chapter 24 verses 15 through 21 how it's talking about his elect or his chosen people. So all of this is correlating with this one verse. Now I want y'all to understand what it means when it says, so the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. You got to understand what that means. Okay, what is this talking about? This woman get wings and she flies away into the wilderness, and because she's being tormented by Satan or Antichrist, so she got to run away. She got to go find habitation. So when she tries to do that, the serpent gets upset and he wants to spew water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. Well, what does flood represent? You got to understand what flood represents here as well, right? So let's look at Isaiah chapter 59 verse 19. Isaiah chapter 59 verse 19. Isaiah chapter 59, verse 19. All right. When you look at verse 19, it says, so shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. Which, as you can see, but the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened up its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon spewed out of his mouth. Guess you see how this stuff correlates with one another. Even though this is back in the Old Testament and it's talking about salvation for them even back in the days, or talking about even future prophecy, do you see how all this correlates with one another? That's why you have to study to show thyself approval. The flood, look at it now. The flood. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. What does flood mean? If you notice, I put my notes right here, so it shows you the correlation of what flood means. With that being said, let's get ready to go to some of these verses. Mind you, we got to understand what flood means so we can understand what verse 15 is talking about, which goes off into verse 16. You have to understand what flood means. Now, with that being said, let's go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 26. Daniel chapter 9, verse 26. Let me see if I can pull it up right here as well. Daniel chapter 9, verse verse 26 through 27. Now, I want y'all to see it on the screen. Daniel chapter 9, verses 26 through 27 says this. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Didn't I just read this? Didn't I just explain to y'all about the Jerusalem 70 AD? When it said, thank you, Holy Spirit, or Ruach HaKodesh. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. That's talking about when he was crucified for his people. When he got rejected by his own people and he was crucified. But he wasn't cut off for himself. He wasn't cut off for himself. He was cut off for the salvation and reconciliation of sin for us. So he did everything he did for us as humanity. Okay? He did it for us. And it says, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Talking about at the time, back in the biblical New Testament time, is talking about when the Gentiles of the Roman Empire and anybody else who came in before or after them, but especially around this time that I'm talking about. When the Romans came in and they destroyed the temple, they trampled it, they took and they killed all of the Israelites, all of these Hebrew nation of people. They ruled over them, they enslaved them, they probably killed man, woman, child, probably the animals too. You know what I'm saying? They trampled the city down. And like I was just telling y'all earlier, that's what Yahshua was talking about when he was crying on that donkey and he saw his people waving them palm trees and blessing him and, oh, thank you, Yahushua HaMashiach. And he already knew what was coming about them, because he knew that, yeah, they praising me now, but when that time get here, they're going to reject me. And after they reject me, woe unto them, because they don't even know what's about to come to them. Well, this is what came to them, because he said it. He said it in one of his books, when he was walking during his earthly ministry, that this was going to happen. Because he even said that not one stone is going to be up. Paraphrase, not one stone is going to be saved. He was telling the disciples that the temple and all that was going to be destroyed along with his people. Okay, but let's continue. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. Okay. But not for himself, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end of it shall be with a flood. No different than what I just showed you in Isaiah chapter 59, verse 19. And the end of it shall be with the flood. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. And until the end of the war, desolations are determined. And it shall be with the flood until the end of the war. Before I explain to y'all what that really means, let me speak a little bit more, just a little bit more on what this is pertaining to. Just give me a little bit more on what this is pertaining to. Because again, you got to understand what Revelation chapter 12 verse 15 or 16 is talking about when it speaks on the water was spewed out of his mouth. You have to understand what that means. So I'm showing you just a few aspects of what Isaiah 59:19 talking about, dealing with a flood. Daniel chapter 9, verse 26 is talking about a flood. But as you notice, Daniel chapter 9, verse 26 said, till the end of the war, desolations are determined. Let's go a little further, okay? Just a little further. And I want y'all to also keep in mind that, let's see. Let me show y'all if I can, even in my let me show y'all something. even in my Hebrew Greek Concordance Study Bible. Let's see. It might be hard to see it, but I'm going to try to the best of my ability. And then this light can be a little aggravating too. When you look at Daniel chapter 9 verse 26 and the word flood and what it means, I looked it up at 7858 and it means shatuf, okay? And with that word, it means flood, outrageous, overflowing. A masculine noun meaning a flood, mighty waters, a torrent. Its primary usage is flood. Okay? The noun is used figuratively to indicate coming judgment. Coming judgment. It is used figuratively to indicate coming judgment, which comes out of what? Daniel chapter 9 verse 26. So when that happened, right here, this flood was talking about coming judgment that happened during Jerusalem's fall of 70 AD. Okay? And it's speaking on till the end of the war. So flood must be meaning some common judgment or some type of warlike situation. Flood, torrent, overflowing, coming judgment, war. Pay attention to those words. Pay attention to those words. Okay? It also means in 7857, the root word for flood. It's spelled the same, except for 7858 got SHETEPH. The one up above it is SHATAPH, meaning shut off. To gush, to inundate, to cleanse, to gallop, to conquer, drown, overflow, overwhelm, rinse, run. A verb meaning to gush, to cleanse, to conquer, to overflow, to overwhelm, to rinse, to run, etc. Okay? Overpower, to cleanse, to wash away, to overflow. Okay? So the reason why I want to show y'all what that Hebrew word really meant in these particular verses. Now, when I go to Daniel chapter 11, it's also talking about a flood, right? But it's going to explain to you what flood really means. So let me find my page that's going to show that there. Daniel chapter 11 verse 22. So let's do Daniel chapter 11 verse. Let me start at 21 through 22. Alright. So Daniel chapter 11 verses 21 through 22 says this. And in his place shall arise a vile person, talking about the Antichrist. But even again, this is a dual prophecy, because when you read this chapter, it's also talking about a lot of talking about the kings of the north and the kings of the south back in the biblical times. But it's also a dual prophecy because it's talking about the prophecy for us in our day and time. Okay, but again, you have to study this on your own. It's too much to break down in one video. You have to study this on your own. It's talking about the kings of the north and the south back in the days during biblical times, and during history, even during history, you know, even during history, not just biblical times, but history itself. But this is also speaking on our day and time. Okay. So in his place shall arise a vile person, which for us would be talking about the Antichrist, to whom they will not give the honor of loyalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. The Antichrist is going to come in as this false like humanitarian who's wanting to come in with peace and stop wars and save the world and save the economy and help the people, etc., etc. He's going to come in with this false peace. But at the end, he's going to flip. That's when the abomination of desolation takes place. I will be doing a study on some of what I just spoke on. I will be doing studies on that. But again, you have to follow me. Shoot, maybe even subscribe to my channel. But you have to follow me to understand what I'm talking about when I say I will talk about certain other topics later. I'll be talking about other different presentations. All right, now, verse 22. Verse 22. This verse is also talking about a flood, no different than Revelations chapter 12, no different than Isaiah chapter 59 and 19, no different than Daniel chapter 9 verse 26. This same verse is talking about a flood, but this verse, when I show you in my Bible, the biblical notes of what flood means, is going to help you understand what Revelation chapter 12 verse 15 and 16 is talking about. Alright. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. Now, when I did my study to understand what flood meant, let me show you what it literally means. So, when you look at verse 22, do you see what it's talking about? Do you see this? It says, Egypt's armies, I need a better light, y'all. Egypt's armies were swept away by Antioch, and I'm bad with names, Antiochus, invading forces as by a flood. But what is it saying that flood means? Flood is representing a military onslaught, which is spoken of just like it is in Daniel chapter 9 verse 26. When it symbolically speaks about a force of or a flood or water being spewed out of the serpent's mouth, it's talking about military onslaught. Okay, you see that? I just want to make sure you see that now. They shall be swept away by like a flood. Military onslaught. So, what is Revelations chapter 12 verse 15 and 16 talking about then, Crystal? So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. He's going to try to make war and persecute the elect. That's what it's talking about. He's going to come with the force of military onslaught to persecute that woman or the elect, which is the true church, the true followers of the Most High. He's going to come and do that. Or he's going to try to come and do that. So that's what it means when it says, so the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman. He's coming after her with military force, military onslaught, wanting to persecute them saints. Okay? So the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. Somehow, Yahushua HaMashiach, Ruach HaKodesh, which is called the Holy Spirit, is going to protect his people from that military onslaught. And how is he going to do that? How is he going to protect his people? Because if you remember, I said way back in Isaiah chapter 26 verse 20, I said way back, go hide yourself and close yourself in the chamber. Go and hide yourself until the end of nation is past. Of course, it's talking about the wilderness, the safety habitation. This is where he's going to protect his people. In that wilderness. Even though the serpent's going to try to come after them, he's going to protect them and put them in a safety habitated place. Okay? That's what this is talking about. But you want to understand how he's going to put his people in this safety habitated place. How is he going to habitat his people with these wings and put them in this particular place for safety? It's symbolic, but it has a symbolic meaning to it, y'all. Okay? So, right now, I've showed y'all what it means about understanding Revelation chapter 12, verses 13 through 16, understanding what it means about the woman being flown. For now, I'm going to go deeper into that. What it means about the wilderness. I just showed you about Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20, putting them in a habitat, a safety spot. I just showed you what it means about the flood. I just showed you other stuff as well about how all this is correlating into one. But you want to understand, how did they fly and get off into that wilderness? And even though the Antichrist tried to come in and subdue them and overcome them and overflow them with a military force, Yahshua still looked out for them. It ain't no different. Thank you, Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh. It ain't no different than when Moses escorted the people out of Egypt, if you know about the Bible and read. And they had to get away from Pharaoh and his people. And they were in I guess they got to the Red Sea. They seen they couldn't cross over. So what did Yahshua or Yahweh, the Lord, God, Father, what did he do? He split the Red Sea in half for those people to escape. Once all his people got across on the other side of that sea, even though Pharaoh and his people were on his tail, on them people tail, mainly his military people were the ones that was chasing after them. They were right behind them. You can picture it. The Israelites running through the base of the ocean floor, and the Egyptians are right behind them. But as soon as Yahshua got all his people, every last single person on that safe side, he allowed the Red Sea to close up. And when the Red Sea closed up, what did it do? It drowned, because you got to think these people at the bottom of the ocean floor. It drowned mostly all of Pharaoh's military force. So, how is he going to destroy the Antichrist military force that's going to come after the woman in the wilderness? It said he's going to open up the earth. And he literally might do that. He literally might open up the earth and cause the military force to be destroyed. Or it can be symbolic. What does that symbolism mean on that part? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know everything. But if you think about the way he did with the Red Sea, how we not know that he won't do the same way when he get ready to open up the earth and cause that military force to be destroyed for trying to come and destroy his people? We don't know. He might really open up the earth. He might cause an earthquake. Cause the earthquake to crack open the earth and cause the people to fall off into the depths of the earth. We don't know. But we know he's going to protect his people. He's going to habitat his people in the safety. But you also want to understand, what does it mean when it says the woman was flew into the wilderness? What does that mean? All right. Well, remember when I told y'all that Revelation chapter 12 verses 13 through 16 also cross-references with Enoch chapter 51 verse 1? Let's look at that first. Let's take a look at that first. Again, it's coming out this book here. Okay. So let's take a look at that first. Just verse 1 by itself. Let's take a look at it. And it says thus, after that period, in the place where I had seen every secret sight, how was Enoch transported? I was snatched up in a whirlwind and carried off westwards. I was snatched up in a whirlwind and carried off westwards. Interesting. Then when you say snatched up in a whirlwind, you was flown some kind of way. You had to be flown some kind of way. He was snatched up in a whirlwind, literally. Well, if you don't believe that, and if you can't understand that, let's get ready to go right here to Revelation chapter 17, verses 3. It says so right here. You might can't see it, and I'm opening it up for you in just a minute. It says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. I was snatched up in a whirlwind. Let's see what Revelation chapter 17 verse 3 talking about. Well, I don't think it's going to open up. Let me go right here. And I open it up this way. So he carried me away in the spirit. Now mind you, Revelation chapter 17 verse 3 is talking about that scarlet beast. And it's showing John the visions. We'll talk about that again in another study. Okay. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. That makes you wonder, is that how he's going to come and call his elect from the 4 corners of the earth? I mean, it did say in Matthew, chapter 24, it did say in Matthew chapter 24, verses 30 through 31, then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the 4 winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So when that trumpet sound, when that great sound trumpet of deliverance blows, his angels are going to gather his people or his elect from the 4 winds and from one corner of the heaven from one corner of the earth of earth to the other. How is they going to do that? All I can tell you from understanding this biblical verse is they're going to be transported spiritually. They're going to be carried away, or as I say, we, his elect, because I'm going to claim it. I'm going to get myself together as much as possible so I can get carried away in the spirit and into the wilderness that's spoken of in Revelation chapter 12. The same woman that flew with the wings, she's going to be transported in spirit. Some kind of way. In spirit. She's going to be transported. I showed you just in Enoch chapter 51 verse 1 how that's going to happen. Because he even spoke, even Enoch spoke on how he was carried away in a whirlwind. Don't that sound so unbelievable? But it's so powerful on how the Most High is so omnipotent. It's so just awesome. He's awesome. He's awesome. He's just magnificent. He's going to allow his angels to carry us in the spirit or through some type of whirlwind. And he's going to use his trumpet of deliverance. Have the angels blow that trumpet of deliverance and have all his elect from the four corners of the earth be transported in spirit and gone into the wilderness. Think about it. How the woman had wings to where she could fly. Going to be transported spiritually in some type of whirlwind, in some type of way, in some type of form, and in some type of fashion. Look at this right here. Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 4 through 5 and Ezekiel and verses 13 through 14 and verse 27. All this is an example or an explanation of his throne and his possible way of gathering his people. And then when you look, and that's also, and I'm showing y'all that you would have to look at, get ready to pay attention to my book of Revelation study and my future apocalypse study in order to understand anything else I'm talking about, even if it's talking about dealing with the scarlet beast, talking about the end times. You have to get ready to take heed to these two slides or these two presentations to understand even more of what we're talking about now. But with that being said, when you look at Matthew chapter 24 and 27, what does it say? For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. So he's pretty much telling us how he's coming. He's telling us how he's coming. When he do come back. When he do literally step foot on the earth. See, this right here, Matthew chapter 24, 27, I think people confuse that with a rapture. See, you got to be put in the wilderness first, y'all. During Jacob's trouble, during the abomination of desolation, you got to go through that Jacob's trouble. You got to go through that being trampled down. You got to go through all the, because we're doing it now. We're going through a lot of tribulation. We just haven't touched the great tribulation yet. The great tribulation is dealing with Antichrist literally being on the scene. And Antichrist literally persecuting people for not bowing down to him, because he's going to sit himself in that temple. That's when Joshua is going to take his people and put them in safety. That's when he was saying, yeah, y'all going to go through some stuff, which we are now. But when Satan actually hit the scene, that's when we're going to be transported by spirit, by whirlwinds. That's when we're going to be transported into safety. Okay. Verse 27, and I'm going to show you this as well, but verse 27 is talking about when Joshua actually steps foot on earth to get ready to war with the people. And I think people get those two, and I think that's why I put it up there, because I think a lot of people get those verses confused with a rapture, and he's going to come back, and that's when he's going to rapture up his people when he come back. No, he's going to allow his people to be in safety somewhere right before he comes back. Because the abomination has to come back. He has to come into play in order for Joshua to come back. The Antichrist has to do his part before Joshua comes back. And when the abomination does his part, that's when he's gonna somehow take us in a whirlwind or somehow gather his people and put them in a safe place. Everybody might not be in that same safe place. Okay? Because you got some people on one side of the world and some people on another side of the world. Everybody's not going to be in the same place. He might take his group of people here that's in South Carolina and put them in a safe place. He might take the people in Georgia and put them in a safe place. Or he might have all his people that are true followers gathered together and go into a safe place. But he's going to make sure his people are put in a safe place. And that's going to definitely be during the time of Antichrist's reign, which is the Great Tribulation. He's going to do that. That's got to take place before he comes back. Okay? That's got to take place. When I was speaking on him and the four corners of the earth, because I'm trying to do it all in a duel, I was actually talking about when he blows that trumpet for deliverance, and he takes all his people and gather them in I think Mount Zion. I think that's in Rapture Part 3, when I was talking about how he's gonna come to war, and he's gonna when he blows that trumpet for deliverance, he's gonna gather all his elect from the four corners of the earth. I think that's also gonna be another miraculous transport. But right then, before, like I said, before all that happens, this wilderness got to take place when Antichrist hits the scene. His people got to be put in the safety somewhere, and we all going to be put in the safety somewhere, maybe in different locations. We all ain't going to be together. You might have some people over there in Russia who are true followers of the Most High being put in a safe place somewhere. You might have us being put in a safe place somewhere. But Revelation chapter 12 is talking about safety and habitation and being transported somewhere in a safe place. Whether it's through some type of whirlwind, whether it's through some type of spirit, we're going to be transported in a safe place. And then when he comes back to battle his enemies, like I said in Rapture Part 3, when he comes back to battle his enemies, that's when he's going to call all his elect from the four corners of the earth. He's going to gather us, and I think he's also going to gather us in the whirlwind that way too. And that's when he's going to actually place us in his designated spot, which I spoke of in Revelation Part 3. His possible way of gathering his people when he do crack the sky open, when he do show himself. Okay? Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 4 through 5 and Ezekiel chapter 1 verses 13 through 14 says thus. Then I looked, and behold, a whirlwind was coming out of the north, a great cloud with raging fire engulfing itself, and brightness was all around it, and radiating out of its midst like the color of amber out of the midst of the fire. Also from within it came the likeness of four living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of man. Don't you know that's talking about his angels? That's talking about his angels that, if I'm not mistaken, that literally guards his throne 24/7. And you have to read this chapter itself to get a description of how these angels look. It's so complex you can't even imagine how they look. But when you look at verses 13 through 14, it says, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. Appearance of torches, fire, flashes going back and forth among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went what? Lightning. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning. And the living creatures ran back and forth in appearance like a flash of lightning. I also want to show you this one too. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 27. Also from the appearance of his waist and upward, I saw it, as it were the color of amber, with the appearance of fire all around within it. And from the appearance of his waist and downward I saw, and as it were the appearance of fire with brightness all around. So it's explaining to us, even Ezekiel is explaining the appearance of what? Matthew chapter 24 verse 27. For as the lightning comes from the east and the flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. So in other words, everybody's gonna see him. Everybody's gonna see him. That's why he said in Revelation, for those that say, here is the Christ and here I am, that's false. Because everybody's gonna see him. Everybody, non-believers and believers as well, is going to see him. And the way he comes, it's going to be like a flash of lightning. And I just explained Ezekiel and the example of how he would possibly come. He's going to come like a flash of lightning from the east to the west. Just like how he just spoke of about how his cherubs are just flashing back and forth, just like flashes of torches of fire. And how he's going to be bright and enamored. And how he's going to look like a flash of lightning. That's how he's coming. That's why I say, and I think that's also in Matthew, he's going to come like a thief in the night. Because he's going to flash. He's going to be flashing through. And you know what? Revelation chapter 6 verse 12 through 16 say. When people see him, look at what's going to happen. Again, this will be taught a little more in my presentations I just showed y'all. The Beast of Revelation. And probably even a little bit in the Apocalypse. But you're going to see all this happening, right? With these cosmic disturbances. You're going to see all this happening. All this stuff going to happen. Okay? All of this is going to happen. And when it happens, when 12 through 14 happens, guess what's going to happen in 15? And the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave, every free man, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. Because see, when you see him, he gonna be so glorious, so righteous, so powerful, sharper than a two-edged sword, that people ain't gonna want to deal with seeing him. They gonna want the rocks and the mountains and all that stuff to fall on them, because they ain't gonna be able to deal with his righteousness and his glory and his power. And then after seeing a description that off the wall description of how his angels and even himself is going to look coming out of Ezekiel, who going to be able to stand seeing him? Except for the ones that's ready to see him. Because he did say when we look up in that sky and see him, we're going to know that time is near. Even in Luke right here. Luke chapter 21, verses 25 through 28 speaks on it too. And it says, and there will be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Meaning, in other words, everything that you just saw, that I just showed you in the previous chapter about the cosmic disturbances, that still is similar to the coming of the Son of Man. Because when he comes, he's ramshacking everything. Earthquakes going to go on, mountains going to fall apart, waves going to be, you're going to see the sun I'm telling you, it's just going to be all kinds of stuff going on. And because of all that stuff going on, when he comes, verse 26 says, men's hearts are going to be filling them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And what did he tell us? Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. But those that don't believe in him and don't know what's going on, they're going to start fainting. They ain't going to know what to do. They're going to be wanting to hide. They're going to be wanting the rocks and the mountains to fall on them, because they ain't going to be able to stand his appearance. But people like us, we going to look up and be glad to see that redemption drawing near. So them cosmic disturbances that you just saw, that I just showed you before the scripture, all that stuff is going to happen. And it's correlating with this right here. And when all that stuff happen and all that chaos and the heavens and all that stuff will be shaking, that's when we're going to know that the Son of Man is coming. And then I just explained to you how the Son of Man is possibly going to look, and the way he's going to flash through here like lightning. Along with his cherubs, his angels. You know, maybe they're going to be the same angels that's going to blow the trumpet. And maybe it's going to be a different set, because he do have different categories of angelic beings. No different than Satan and his dominions. He got different categories of demonic team players. But yeah, so with that being said, have we seen him yet? Nope. Is there going to be a rapture? I doubt it. We ain't seen none of this stuff take place yet. All the stuff got to take place. So with that being said, there's no rapture. That's what I was meaning when I was saying there's no rapture. I'm explaining to you why people would probably have things confused dealing with a rapture when he's talking about calling his elect and gathering his people and being flown into the wilderness and all that. Like I say, the wilderness that I was showing y'all right here, dealing with the woman, that's got to even take place before Yahshua comes back. His people got to be gathered in safety habitations, even if it's in different parts of the earth. He's going to somehow miraculously put us in a safe place. And then, and that's even right during Jacob's trouble, during the Great Tribulation. That's got to take place too before Yahshua comes back. So this right here about the woman being persecuted and Satan spewing water, all of this got to take place before Yahshua comes back. So again, no rapture. If you're living, you're going to see this stuff take place. The only way you ain't going to see this stuff take place is if you're dead and in the grave. But other than that, this got to take place before he come back. This takes place after Revelation chapter 12. Seeing the glory of him, that does not come until after the Great Tribulation. This right here, these two, happens when he comes back. Hide us from his presence. Men's hearts are going to be filling from his glorious appearance. I explained to y'all how it's possible that when he do call his people, how we would probably be transported. When he do call his elect from the four corners of the earth, when he comes back and he has his angels blow that trumpet of deliverance. I showed you right here how we would probably be carried into the wilderness, and his wilderness, which is his safety habitation. And I'm thinking that's over there in Jerusalem, Mount Zion somewhere. But that's not this right here, being carried away into the wilderness, all that part right there into his safety, and him and we being called and his people being called from the four corners of earth. This right here ain't gonna take place until he comes back. But when it comes down to that Antichrist and the abomination of desolation and that great tribulation and his people having wings to fly into the wilderness, that's the symbolism of us being placed miraculously, safely somewhere. Like I say, those that are true followers of him now in South Carolina, we might be transported safely in one spot, and then people in Canada might be transported safely in another spot, and then people in Hawaii might be transported safely in one spot, and we still all gonna be separated from each other until he calls and blows that trumpet and transports us spiritually, maybe through a whirlwind here too, maybe through a whirlwind here too. He calls us out from the four corners of the earth when he get ready to battle with them enemies. So I'm not gonna be able to have all this finished like I thought so, because I'm already over an hour, and I got no, I think I am gonna be finished. I think I can make this happen. Let me look at Isaiah chapter 43 verses 5 through 6. And I might not be able to make it happen, because y'all know I'm detailed. I'm gonna try to give it to you like it ain't nothing. So he said it right here. He said it also in Isaiah chapter 43 verses 5 through 6. He said it. He says, "Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your descendants from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth." That's when he comes back. When he comes back and he calls and he blows that trumpet, or he has his angels blow that trumpet, he's telling the earth to give up my people from the north, the south, the east, and the west. Because now they coming over here to be with me. So again, keep in mind, this here is totally different from when he comes back on his own. This here is some miraculous way of him putting us in safety when the Antichrist hit the scene. Because right now, I'm going to say it again, yes, we are in tribulation times. But there's a 7-year tribulation. 3.5 of it is just a basic tribulation. The other half is the Great Tribulation. And the Great Tribulation is when Antichrist comes back and he walks the scene. And he's going to come back as this great humanitarian who's trying to be a peace saver. And at the end, he's going to flip on the people he made a treaty with. And he's going to sit in that temple. He's going to want to play God. He's going to want everybody to worship him. And for those who don't want to worship him, they're going to get persecuted. They're going to get taunted at. He's going to have his military force come after you. When that happens, that's when Yahshua, like I said in Isaiah chapter 26 verse 20, that's when Yahshua is telling you, close yourself up in the chamber and hide yourself until the indignation has passed. That's what he's talking about, because he hasn't came yet. But he's telling you to go put yourself in safety until the indignation is passed. And the indignation is not going to pass until he shows up. And he calls his 4 people from the 4 corners of the earth. And when he do, he might carry us away in spirit or in some type of whirlwind that Enoch chapter 51 verse 1 even said. Okay? So again, these are 2 different events. One of them is putting us in safety when the Great Tribulation hit. The other one is calling us and probably putting us in some type of whirlwind when he come with his flash of lightning, or his way of flashing through here on the earth, and he break that sky open, because everybody gonna see him and their heart gonna be failing and they gonna be wanting to hide. That's when he gonna take his people and his elect from the 4 corners of the earth and take them into his hands and gather them and put them in the land he wants his elect to be in. Now when you look at Jeremiah chapter 32 verse 37, he says it again. He says it right here. He says it again. "Behold, I will gather them out of all countries where I have driven them, in my anger and in my fury and great wrath. And I will bring them back to this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely." That's Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 37. And you can see where I got my biblical scriptures correlating with it. Okay? He's gonna, when he comes back, That's when he's going to gather his people and put them in that place, which is most likely Jerusalem, Mount Zion. But until then, we're going to be suffering. We're going to go through some things. We're going through tribulation now. So again, there is no rapture. Sorry for those who say, oh, well, the rapture is for those that's going to be raptured up and gone into heaven. And then after heaven, the people that's left on earth, they're going to go through the tribulation. No, we all going through it. Because again, if that was really, 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 really true, his true people would not be here as of now. Because we are going through tribulation. Can y'all not see that? I showed y'all in one of my slides, either in this one or in several of them. I've showed y'all that if you look at Matthew chapter 24, we are going through some of that stuff now. So there is not a rapture. We are going through them tribulation tests and trials and sorrows and birth pangs now. And it's going to get worse when Antichrist hit the scene. And that's right around the corner. We just don't know when, but it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner, y'all. I'm telling you. With that being said, we're going to try to get this part in. And if you look, I say so right here. In 2 Peter chapter 3, it's called the day of the Lord. It says, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned. Therefore, since all these things will be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking forward and hastening the coming day of Yahuwah, because of which the heavens will be dissolved, being on fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, which is in Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 4, in which righteousness dwells. So what are you saying, Crystal? What are you saying when you say that? When we look at Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. What are you trying to say? Well, let's look at Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. Because we already know he did promise Noah that he was no longer going to destroy the earth by a flood. For anybody who has read the word. But when he do finally destroy the earth, and we will talk about that, I promise you, he's going to destroy it with fire. Now, where will we be? I have no idea. Maybe he will take us to that heavenly realm then, because where else will we go when he gets ready to destroy this earth by fire? But again, that's my theory. But I want to show y'all and prove to y'all how the churches have taught us we're going to heaven. If we do, it's because during this time, he's destroying the earth by fire. But we're not actually going to heaven. Heaven and the new earth is going to be recreated and brought here. Now, if you don't believe me, let me show you in Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. What did John say? Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth have passed away. How? Through the fire. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming from which way? Coming down out of heaven from Yahuwah. John said he saw the new holy city coming down out of heaven from Yahuwah, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of Yahweh is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. You see that? Yahweh himself will be with them, and they will be, will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. The new Jerusalem, the new heaven and the new earth is being prepared. Because Yahshua told us that. He come to prepare a place for us. It's being prepared. Right now, even to this day as we speak. And it's been being prepared. But it's coming down to us. We're not going up to it. It's coming down to us. So again, for anybody, because I was one of them who was in religion too. For anybody who thinks that we're going into heaven, who thinks that there's going to be a rapture, I'm sorry. Not today, as they say, and that's not going to happen. I am so sorry. This is the end of the rapture session. I will be getting ready to pick up on preparing for the end times. But I needed to show y'all, for those at the time when I was talking about preparing for the end times and I spoke something about there not being a rapture, I had to bring in this interlude for y'all to understand why I said that. Because somewhere in my prepare for the end times presentation, I said there was not going to be a rapture. So I had to break it down to show y'all why. We're not going up into the heaven like we've been taught. The new heaven and the new earth is coming down. It's coming to greet us. We're not going up. If we do go up like I just showed y'all, it'll be temporarily because somehow they got to destroy the earth with fire. And I don't know where we're going to be at that time. Maybe we will be going up at that time. Who knows? I'm not for sure. That's just my theory. But just keep in mind that for people saying, oh, we're going up in heaven. No, heaven and earth is coming here. Thy kingdom come. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I am now finished with there will be no rapture presentation. Facebook family and friends, y'all take care. Be blessed. Stay prepared. Get prepared. Seek true deliverance. Seek true repentance. Seek the true Yahshua, as the world calls Jesus. Ask for Ruach HaKodesh, as the world calls it, the Holy Spirit, to lead you and guide you. Don't just go by my words. Don't just go by words that you've heard from other people. You have to read, to study, and show yourself approved, that you may be known of what's going on today in this day and time. And I promise you with confidence, if you open up spiritually, I promise you the Most High will show you things. He will show you things which thou knowest not. And he will show you things that you have never been taught. And it's scary at times because you say to yourself, is this really true? Is this really what's going on? Is this really the truth behind the Bible, but I've been taught this way? It's amazing, but it's a good amazing. And it's scary, but it's a good scary. Facebook family, y'all take care. And may y'all stay blessed.